Hey y'all, it's Shalisco signing in for another video. Welcome back. How y'all doing? What's up? If you haven't been catching up to my social media platforms, it is Shalisco on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as you can obviously see today, we are talking about sex. We're going to be dissecting it from the lens of movies and TV shows, music, and then lastly, we're going to go to the streets next week and really get people's opinion on what they really think is going on in our society concerning sex. Is it affecting them negatively, positively? Are we moving in the right direction and being more sex positive, or are we regressing? And I'm not gonna lie, I'm nervous to have this conversation because it's been roaming in my head for weeks, months. I said, Father God, are you sure I really wanna talk about this with the people? Are you sure that we should head in this direction? But he said, go ahead. So here we are. So let's go. As sex and intimacy is a normal part of human nature, it is not a surprise to see it depicted in movies and TV shows from time to time. It is said that the earliest record of a sex scene ever to be seen in movies was done in 1896 by the movie called The Kiss. And this was met with so much outrage. I'm talking about people were saying that this is completely immoral, this is shockingly obscene, like there's no reason why this should be in movies, like you should take it out of the theaters. Can you imagine? One simple sex scene, people were getting upset. They did not know that this was the beginning of the end. Now, at this junction, we have to distinguish the difference between erotic films and graphic films. All right. I know some people get very sticky and squirmy. Sticky and squirmy, Shola. I know people get very squirmish when it comes to that specific word, but because of the subject matter and how closely related these two can be to each other, it is very important that we still discuss it to a certain degree. All right. I'm going to try my best to not lay too much emphasis on it, but it's still important for us to distinguish what it is. I hope y'all understand. Erotic films, on one hand, tend to show the intimate act of sex. However, it is not the full premise of the film. All right. You could even say erotic films and sex scenes in movies and TV shows are very closely related because they still have a basis to a plot most times. It's not just straight on, films, on the other hand, where it's the whole entire premise. All you're just seeing are people just going at it, having sex and everything. It's meant to cause some kind of arousal. It's supposed to be some kind of stimulant for people who are watching it to, ignite some kind of action outside of them watching it. There are a plethora of genres over the past couple of decades that have gone ahead to showcase nudity slash sex scenes. For instance, rom-coms, action films, coming of age films, and we really just get to see it build up the storyline most times. Like there is a reason for it. There is a reason for it. In my personal opinion, you don't really need it to showcase someone being intimate or being in a romantic setting. But anyways, but in comparison to graphic films, like I've said before, it seems as though you're only seeing those acts as a way to catapult some kind of arousal to the person who's watching it. And it's intended for older audiences, meaning it's not intended for teenage boys watching it after school. It's not intended for younger kids just stumbling upon it through an ad when they're trying to go ahead and use a Chromebook. You know what I mean? Do you get what I'm saying? Because one thing we're noticing is that it's not being seen by just older audiences. Like we're seeing underage children go ahead and watch these things. And we're getting to a point where we're realizing now in our society that because of the overexposure of the internet at such a young age, some of these kids get roped into watching it without even realizing it. And it's literally frying their brains. I mean, it's films in general, like, I was like, they fry people's brains. Whether we want to admit it or not, you may think it's helping you, but it's not. It's actually making your sex life much worse than it is at the moment. Like, it's just the truth of it. And as much as I want to like dance around it and not really make it seem like it's that big of a deal, it is a very, very big deal. We are getting to points where people are just seeing people as sexual objects. We're not seeing people as human beings anymore. Like, you'll hear certain interactions with men where they're like, oh yeah, I'm looking at a girl and I'm seeing her as an attractive person that I could sleep with, and not just seeing her as a normal human being. And you can imagine how that's now impacting young children who are now exposed to these said films or these said videos. Because back then it was that, especially from the idea of the golden age of people were able to go ahead and see it in theaters. And then we started having the production of blue films where you can take it home, you can have it as home videos and everything like that. And I believe this was around the age of 1969 to 1984 where that production was really just coming up. Andy, when I catch you, Andy, mm, you caused all of this. Hopefully, you know. I mean, of course, I'm not saying that there weren't productions before then, but he was part of like the pioneers to really get the golden age of like into the limelight, to now where like people were seeing ads of it. People are now seeing it, seeing videos that they can just see online at any point in time. I'm talking about because of, cellular devices, people can literally watch it everywhere. Anyways, I'm jumping the gun, clearly. But anyways, at least now you guys get the picture. Around the golden age of we started to see certain actors and actresses rise to stardom due to their ability to capitalize on their sex appeal. At times, people started to watch said movies and TV shows just because they would get to see their favorite actor, their favorite actress being starred in it. For instance, we had people like Marilyn Monroe literally go ahead and be that certain caricature in certain movies and TV shows that would grab people's attention just because of how sexually attractive she was. And to be honest, from that birth, we started to see other people over time take on that same layout in order to boost their acting career. And I don't really know if that's a pro or a con, because with Marilyn Monroe's life, we got to see that people only got to see her as her physical appearance. People only saw her like being that super sexy, beautiful woman, but they didn't really get to see the rest of her. They didn't really understand her as a human being. And that led on to so many detrimental and dangerous things that end up happening to her. So, as much as, yes, I agree, capitalize on your looks to get to where you need to go, but at what cost? As much as we may complain on how much sex and nudity we see in movies and TV shows, studies do show that they're drastically different from the way they used to be in the 1990s and the early 2000s. Like, the amount of sex scenes we have now and nudity is at a smaller percentage in comparison to the way they used to be back then. However, for some of us users, it feels like it's at its all-time high. But I was actually able to look and dissect and see that the studies are true. They're right. If you were to take a rom com back in the day and compare it to rom coms now, you won't get to see the amount of nudity or even the simple acts of intimacy that two people are having between each other in a romantic pursuit. But back then, I would have to say, when it came to sex scenes and nudity, you got to see the buildup at times. You got to see the true intimacy. You got to see the yearning, the desire. You had this picture that was already painted out to you through the several little intricate details and scenes that were put in as a way for it to be like a climax, a lead up. But nowadays, it just kind of happens really quickly. You don't really get a chance to really understand the characters and why they're doing what they're doing and why you're seeing what you're seeing. It's just very much like, oh, let's just get on with it. Let's just do it just to do it. Back then, it was very much like, oh, I want you. I need you. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. If you get that reference, you get me. That's all I gotta say. We also have to remember that when it comes to certain genres, you're obviously going to get more sex scenes. You're obviously going to have more nudity. For instance, rom-coms, romantic films, sometimes you're gonna get it in those said university movies and TV shows. You know what I mean? Because that's when people are starting to learn themselves. That's when people are starting to explore. The likelihood of you getting that same amount of nudity in an action film is a little bit slim. I know back in the day they used to sneak it in, whether it was like some kind of like romantic interest in some action movie or a military movie and everything like that, someone that they like, and because of the heat of the moment, they get into it and da-da. It was so unnecessary, but they had it anyways because, if you had certain like A-listers in movies, and you wanted to make sure you made money in that said movie, you'd make sure that A-lister has some kind of hot love interest and everything. And especially if it's an action film, the idea of someone going ahead to, like shoot up people and take over countries and cities and everything like that. And there's some, sad woman, who needs to be taken care of. And the guy who's going ahead to shoot up people and be a soldier finds her attractive. And they find a situation that they're in where she now needs to give herself to that man. And da 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 da. You get what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not just rambling. You understand what I mean. Like, it would just be like, it's so unnecessary. You don't need to have that scene in. You don't need to have them like in a situation where they're having sex, but you won't do it anyways because you know people are gonna watch it. But anyways, I rest my case. We must also discuss the fact that the way women and men interact with the subject matter of sex in movies and TV shows are completely different from one another. Completely different. I would say now maybe it's almost similar to one another, but there's still a bit of backlash. Like back in the day, it used to be very much, oh my gosh, like you're gonna have sex, like that's crazy. You're not gonna be a virgin anymore. Da, 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 da. Like, all these girls talking about it and it seems so cutesy or whatever. And like they're all giving advice to one another. That at least that's one perspective that we started to see in the early 2000s and the early 2010s of girls being excited about the conversation of sex. At one point in time, they were kind of squeamish. They'd be like, oh my gosh, you're going to do that? That's crazy. But then it was almost like, oh my gosh, it's like a rite of passage to being a woman. Anyways, and guys would be like, oh yeah, bro, like that's so cool. Like, I'm gonna hit her up this weekend and we're gonna do this and this and this. Oh, bro, that's so nice. Make sure you sauce me her number after so we can, like, you it's almost as if they're not new to this, they're true to this. I think that because art imitates reality and reality imitates art, we're now in a space where we can 100% see how our everyday lives can be played back to us through movies and TV shows. We are getting to a point where we are normalizing this idea of being able to have sexual relations with just anybody. And that's not normal. It's not. Like the idea of one night stands was like essentially introduced to me through movies and TV shows. Friends with benefits, movies and TV shows. The idea of situationships, I'm not gonna lie, Twitter kind of did that too. And also movies and TV shows. And some could even say that because it wasn't meant for my demographic, I learned too early. So you can also understand that if we're making these movies and these TV shows with these A-listers or these people that have huge fan bases and who follow their work, if we get them in these movies and TV shows, where people of younger demographics have access to watching it, they're exposed to this kind of idea and terminology and concepts way too early. And because older people are already doing it, younger people want to do it too so they can also feel older. I'm not saying we were all engaging in that kind of behavior, but I'm just saying that we need to be very mindful, very demure when it comes to going ahead and having discourse or displaying this kind of activity in these movies and TV shows. That's all I'm trying to say. That's all I'm trying to say. But let me know what you think down below. As we dive into music and sex and how they intertwine, it's very interesting for us to see how music has evolved in its subject matter and how people were talking about said subject matter. Yeah. Because in the late 1950s and early 1960s, this was seen as party records, music that you would only play at parties, shindigs, like clubs, very much like racy music. You know what you're getting into with people singing about sex and everything. And it would be more or less raunchy, you know? That's why you weren't hearing that kind of music everywhere. But I would have to say there were two types of songs that we were hearing when it came to party records, when it came to people talking about sex in their music. There were people who were going ahead to, have really fun wordplay. They were having sexual innuendos. They were not spelling out every single thing that they were doing, And there were people who were flat out talking about the sexual activity that they were doing. Yeah. And we could say it's always been a mix of both. It's never just been, oh, people going ahead to talk about their sexual activity blatantly, or, oh, people going ahead to just hide it and pretend it doesn't exist. It was a blend of both, but it was more intended for older audiences. It wasn't just for everybody to listen to. It was for the people who were going out, who were legal, who were, doing grown folk business. Does that make any sense? When it comes to the subject matter of music and sex, we have to point out that yes, multiple genres across the board do discuss sex often. However, the ones that really take the limelight most of the time is R&B and hip hop. To be honest, like you can hear it in country music, you can hear it in blues. Someone took your honey, and you got to get it back by showing them a little something, something. We hear it across, even in rock music. Even in rock music, you could probably hear it too. But it seems that the genres that get the most flack tend to be the black dominated genres. I'm just going to say it, which is usually hip hop, rap, R&B, which is interesting to me. But at the same time, you could also boil this down to the fact that Black people are constantly hypersexualized in our society and everything like that. So, them going ahead to discuss this kind of subject matter often kind of promotes hypersexuality within our own community and to other people as well. Like, people don't like when Black people are hypersexual. Well, actually, there's also the perspective that people do like Black people being hypersexual because it pushes for them to be seen as just merely sexual objects, to be constantly fetishized. But anyways, that's not the video for this. Well, technically it is. You get what I mean. Let me stay on track. When it comes to hip hop, R&B, rap, it seems as though that depending on who's singing the song based on gender, you will get two different parallels on how sex is truly being discussed. For instance, it seems as though that across the board, sex seems to be some kind of leveraging point, like men being able to sleep with as many women as they want, and women being able to take advantage of how many men they're able to sleep with. That's what it's kind of looking like here. And men would generally, in their music, when they're talking about sex, it seems as though they're able to say, yeah, all the biddies I'm sleeping with are better than yours. So I'm better than you. They boast about the amount of women they're able to sleep with. Yes. And to even take it a step further, they boast about how fine these women are and make it seem like you're in competition with some invisible opponent. Whereas for women, it seems as though that whenever they talk about sex, it's almost as if like they're able to get money, they're able to get taken care of, they're almost using it as like a superpower of theirs to sleep with a specific man or several men, and they're able to get money, influence, power. It's almost like they have an opposing opponent who they're basically battling it out with. That, oh, I can sleep with this man and get this, and this. How about you? You are Dusty Brokey, you're this, that, and the third. it seems as though both sides kind of use sex as a way to not only make themselves feel higher or better than the person that they're kind of in competition with, but they also make it seem like it's some kind of leveraging point. Like it's like they're advising the people who are listening to the music to like get on their level. Maybe that's a stretch, but that's what I could see it as. Like you want your listeners to be people that sleep with the highest caliber, of biddies, to seem like they're the odogu, they're the king, they're cool, the official, the general, Does that make any sense? The presido. That's what these men are portraying it to be, that sleeping with the baddest biddies is the way to go. Having a lot of money, a lot of wealth, a lot of cars, a lot of buildings, being able to club and cash out, and they're surrounded by all these beautiful women that they can sleep with. And these biddies, these girlies that are going ahead to talk about sex, it's almost as if they're talking about it in a sense of, this is what I can get with my body, this is what I can get because I'm that girl. So if you're really that girl, you should be able to sleep with men and get money on. They're able to get all this influence. They're able to be with someone that makes them look good. Do with that information what you will. But what I would say is that one thing that doesn't really make sense is that I'd have to give it to these male rappers. They're about that life. They say it and they're about it. That's why you end up seeing so many rappers end up going to jail, because like they actually like actualize the things that they're talking about. They don't hold anything back. If they want to look like that OG, look like that guy, they talk about it. But on the other side, for the women, it's as if like it's almost like a facade. They make it seem like they're able to do all of these things and get all these men and get all this influence and money, but in all actuality, they don't live by that lifestyle most of the time. Like there's some biddies who do. There have been some women recently who have gone ahead to rap about and talk about how, yes, they're able to get money from rich men and do whatever they want, buy this and buy that. And they got caught up so fast. They got caught up so fast. Mm. Now we're going to pause here and enter editor's cam because there's certain things I wanted to address. If we look at music in the past 50 years, especially from the lens of hip hop, R&B, and rap, right? We see that there is this reoccurring cycle that keeps on happening where women who enter the scene talking about really raunchy things, going ahead to talk about their sex lives. They go ahead and talk about the things that they enjoy and everything like that, how explicit they become in their lyrics and in the way they visualize it. People see it most of the time as it being very disgusting and distasteful, and we shouldn't be listening to this kind of music and everything like that. It's an abomination. And then we grow accustomed to it until somebody else now comes into the scene and talks about something just as raunchy, talk about something just as, sexual. And then we talk about, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did this. This is so bad, da da da. And then we grow accustomed to it, And it just keeps on going on and on and on. We saw that with Little Kim and Foxy Brown, It had its outrage, it made record sales, and then we grew accustomed to it, Especially with the fact that now music videos and people taking a creative leap in their music videos and just displaying whatever they wanted to display, even if they were half naked with fur coats, it was something that people saw and people didn't necessarily agree with. And then it happened again with Anaconda and Nicki Minaj, the outrage that it got, people talking about it so much, it went ahead to top the charts. Yeah. And then we grew accustomed to it. And then no one talked about it again. And then we had someone like Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B now making their song WAP. And then everybody and their mama was talking about it. And it made headlines. And what happened? It made record sales. It was topping the charts. So it's very interesting to me that it keeps on happening like that. People don't realize that the more raunchier you become, the more you're able to get people's attention and the more money they're making. I'm not saying that we should normalize people overtly talking about like their sexual experiences and being extremely raunchy in their videos. And that goes for both men and women in the spaces of hip hop and in the spaces of music. But I'm just saying that like we shouldn't get to a point where like that's all the music is about, where it's like it's either the music itself, the lyrics, or inadvertently, or sorry, I don't even know. Is that the right choice of words? Anyways, like we shouldn't get to a point where the music itself, the lyrics, either have to be extremely sexual and everything like that, and then like the music video does not match at all what you're talking about, or the lyrics itself are very like reminiscent of your life and what you're going through at the moment and everything like that. And then the music video is very sexual, or like you're half naked in your videos. I'm not here to shame these people because I understand that there's a formula and I understand people are trying to make money out here. But then it gets to a point where it's like music is all about chasing a bag. Music is all about people just topping charts. And, they know that if you're talking about sex and everything like that, and you're selling sex and you're like, half naked and you're able to like, pour water on yourself, or you're wearing something very like short and everything like that, people are more likely to watch the video. People are more likely to see you and want to like emulate what they see or have what they see on the screen. And I don't know who was talking about it, what artist was talking about it. I think it was Tyler, the Creator, I saw on TikTok the other day saying that like nowadays it just feels as though that people are just entering the music scene just so they can get a bag, but they don't actually care about the artwork. They don't actually care about like what they're putting out there. It's just so that they can get money and then like elevate the amount of power and like their livelihood. They don't actually care about like the amount of time it takes to put into like their art form. The ability to be able to connect with an audience should be so much more like high on your list in comparison to the money that you're making. I hope I'm making sense, but that's one thing I definitely wanted to discuss, on the fact that yes, we are seeing over and over and over again, people are trying to do more things to get outrage and to make money, especially when it comes to the conversation of sex. But it's like, we have to get to a point where it's like, is it really worth it? Like, you're selling the idea of sex and you know that's going to make you money. Should you continue doing it just because you're trying to top the charts, or should you go ahead and just care about what you're really saying in your lyrics and what you really want to portray in your music videos? But hey, what do I know? Let me know what you think down below. But it seems like mainstream R&B, hip hop, rap is about sex all the time. Now, I really don't want to say that there's an agenda. I don't want to be one of those people. There's an agenda in hip hop. There's an agenda in Hollywood. Nah, 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 nah. But there is. But there is. Because, like, why is it that the songs that are heavily promoting sex, that are constantly talking about sex, that constantly have women half naked in music videos, or constantly have men boasting about how many women they're able to sleep with and all the crazy crimes they're doing to said women in their music being pushed out? Why? Why is that? Hmm? Like, I know that we are in a space in our society where we're driven by desires and arousal and things that give us a dopamine and oxytocin and everything. But when do we get to a point where we choose not to be driven by our desires? I'm all here for being a sex positive society, being able to openly talk about sex and talk about contraceptives and talking about like all the different dangers and all the things that you should expect. And, us being in a space where people can actually ask questions and actually know what's going on with their body. I'm totally here for it. But that's not the way we're going about these conversations about sex in our music, in our movies, and in our TV shows. We're not going that way. We're going in this path where it's like people are so excited and are so stimulated by this idea of sex, but they themselves don't know themselves. They themselves are dealing with real life issues while parading that, oh, I like sex. No, babe, like you're using sex as a stress reliever. with just anybody who's around, you know? You're talking about sex as a way that seems like you're trying to escape from something. You know what I mean? It's not healthy. It's not okay. I can't like preach about it enough that like the media that we're consuming, the music that we're listening to, the movies and TV shows that like we binge watch are literally rewiring our brain in the way that we see intimacy. Like this idea that intimacy is just about giving your body and giving yourself to whoever gives you attention, or going ahead to satisfy certain needs, not realizing that there's a reason why you need to have sexual discipline. There's a reason why you can't be driven by your desires all the time. Because if you are, you're going to put yourself in a dangerous space in life where you can't control yourself, where you're not able to understand the fact that just because you can doesn't mean you should, you know? Because a lot of these things, we act like it's a joke. We act like it's not that serious. You know, everybody's doing it, so it should be okay. It's not okay. It's not okay at all. And I would have to say for me, like going ahead to be exposed to media at such a young age and everything, you know, and seeing certain things, and to the point where we're still in a path of recovery, you know, from being exposed to certain things at a young age. It's kind of hard to talk about because people are so afraid of judgment. People are so afraid of like being perceived. And I'll definitely say being perceived is not fun. It's hard. But at the same time, there is something rewarding about being honest about your journey. There's something rewarding about being able to talk about things that you're struggling with. All glory goes to God and God alone, because I know where I've been. All right. Like, yes, I grew up in a Christian household. Yes, I grew up with Christian values and morals. And yes, I also did rebel. I also, used to club, used to drink, used to smoke and everything like that. Like, I used to fornicate, all the other stuff. Like, I thank God that I'm not in that space anymore. And I don't see like sex, or I don't see like men that way anymore. Like, it's completely different. Okay. Completely different. And I'm not gonna lie, yes, I have my days where I struggle. I have my times where I struggle. I would even say that me and like my addiction with has been like this. I have months where I don't touch it, and then something triggers me and I end up like watching it. And then it would be weeks where I'm like watching it like every other day, or like 2-3 times in a day. And then I'll be off of it for some time, and then I'll come right back to it. But I thank God that I'm in a space right now where it's like, like God has actually broken this addiction off of me. And I could actually say that, as much as I know all this information and I know how like bad for you, and I know like it is something that can like damage your brain and everything like that. An addiction is an addiction, like something that you have been exposed to is going to be hard for you to break if you find pleasure in it. For me, it was very much like a stress thing. Like I'm stressed out, like, or like I'm in a situation where I cannot be sexual. So it's like, if I can't be sexual, let's do this instead. And I'm just getting to a point where it's like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm sick of it. Like, I'm internally sick of like the way I'm behaving. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I feel grossed out. So just getting to that point in this journey of life for me is a blessing, And I told myself, if I'm going to do this video, I have to be 100% honest. I have to be open. And I feel like that's part of the reason why I kind of struggled doing this video for a bit, because I'm like, I don't know, like, but it's the truth. It's the truth. And the truth shall set you free. That's what I believe. So, yeah. So if you are struggling out here with, sex and sin that surrounds sexual immorality and everything like that, you are not alone. It's either day one or one day. Choose. And I had to say, it's not going to be one day anymore. We can't keep doing this. And I want to be as lighthearted as possible, but at the same time, like, talk about how serious this is. and everything like that. I don't want to sugarcoat nothing or like give blanket statements and everything. That's part of the reason why I wanted to really like just take my time and say, okay, this is what it is. I have been graced with the opportunity to be able to present all this information and to talk about, the different things that we see, the different patterns, behaviors that come out of this. Now we're at the point where we need to discuss, how do we move forward? How do we do something different so we don't stay the same? So we don't end up in this perpetual cycle where we're just doing things just to do it, you know that we're not just driven by our emotions and our desires, but we're driven by our mind being set on discipline and consistency and love and care and respect and compassion. You know, a lot of these mediums that we consume on a daily basis don't always have those themes in mind, and it causes us to be in a space where we don't see other human beings as human beings. We see them as just sometimes even fictional characters. We see them as stock characters. We don't see them as a person with their own feelings and their own emotions and everything like that. At times, we're driven by what we can get, what can we receive, rather than what can we give. You have to cut out media where you're constantly watching it and it's feeding into your desires. It's feeding into like the things that you know within yourself. It's not right to indulge in. So if it means cutting out Bridgerton, it means cutting out Bridgerton. If it means cutting out All American Homecoming, it means you have to cut out All American Homecoming. Don't get me wrong, I love those two shows, but I find that when I'm in the season of binging and I'm in the season of like watching these shows, because I love watching shows, I love watching movies, I have to be very careful, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, and you have to be very wary of your gates, very wary. You can't just be exposing yourself just to anything, because when you feed into like things that you watch that are very sexually driven, I'm not saying that like the whole entire storyline is just about sex and everything, but like when it's like it could be a trigger for you or it could be a trigger in general, it's better not to expose yourself to it at all. It's better to just cut it out. Or if you're going to watch it, skip those scenes. It's better to just skip those scenes altogether so you don't put yourself in a position where you're like, oh, like this is making me feel some type of way. Also, with the music, you can't continuously listen to rappers who are constantly talking about sex every 2 seconds in their music and not think it's not going to subconsciously get you into a space where you're not always thinking about sex. Like it's not going to make any sense. Like what you indulge in, what you feed your time and energy into is also the things that are going to come out of you. If you're constantly watching movies and TV shows and music that is all about sex, is all about lust, all about desire, all about covetousness, all about these things that are moral, eventually you're going to mimic that and you're going to act it out too and not even realize it. So that's something also I'm trying to caution myself on, being very mindful. I'm not gonna lie, I have certain guilty pleasures of like songs. I love R&B music, love R&B music, don't. But in my pursuit of modesty and sexual purity, I have to cut it down like a lot. There'll be certain songs I'll listen to, but then I'm like, okay, like that's it for the day. Or, oh, that's okay for the week, or that's okay for the month. Or I'm not listening to that song till like, sometime in the future. Just getting to that point where you are being disciplined about it. Because sometimes it could just be that one thing that set you off, that one song, that one scene. And you don't realize how like it's completely changed the way that you're seeing things in that moment. Also, if you're listening to that kind of music and you are watching those kind of movies and TV shows, don't be surprised when you're in a space where you're around someone that you're attracted to or someone who's giving you some kind of energy and you don't feed into it. Don't be surprised, because if every single piece of energy that we take in, it goes somewhere. whether you realize it or not. It goes somewhere. So if you're engaging and talking to lots of people at a time and you're meeting up with people and everything like that, you don't think that, oh, I'm in close proximity with this person and we're watching this movie, and it's just been that vibe. Some vibes gonna take you all right if you're not careful. When it comes to also like breaking off your desires and your addictions and everything like that, you can do all you can and like cut off certain music and cut off certain TV shows and movies and everything like that. But if you don't have supplements, forget about it. If you don't have anything in as a substitution for what you're cutting off, forget about it. I would definitely say that watching wholesome shows in the 90s, if you're a binge watcher like me, God is still redeeming me from that. Okay. But like if you enjoy shows, get to shows from the 90s. I would definitely say, like, I'm into Family Matters. I'm into watching Martin from time to time, not all the time, I'm into watching Living Single and everything. Wholesome shows that talk about other things, that's not surrounded by that. Don't get me wrong. There are probably a couple scenes here and there that seem kind of intimate, but I would definitely say the quality of storylines and enjoying wholesome content, definitely, I'd have to say, I'm going to 90 shows. They're great. Or you could even go as far as watching A Different World. I'm pretty sure A Different World came out in the 80s. I don't think it's the 90s. Or maybe it's the 90s. I don't even know. I'm going to fact check that later. But anyways, I would have to say replacing it with shows that don't push me in a space to desire certain things or trigger me to want to do certain things is very, very, very important. Getting into podcasts, watching movies and TV shows that inspire you to do more is very big as well. There are some really great channels on YouTube that recommend very great movies, or you can even watch YouTube videos, because YouTube videos, there's so many good information out there that is conveyed in a comical way, in a funny way. Hey, this channel does that too. And I'm going to recommend some down below and hopefully put some at the top that like talk about very intriguing and interesting things that you can watch, or just give you the ability to see things in a different light. There's some great artists out there who make wholesome music that is very intriguing and honestly can be seen as contemporary artists. And if you're also into Christian music or gospel music, there are amazing artists out there as well. I'm going to put some on the screen that you can check out that really, I would say, I personally listen to, and they inspire me. And they also do talk about love from time to time, but not in a lustful manner, in a intimate manner that still guards your heart. And I appreciate those kind of artists. So I'm going to put them up on the side. One thing you have to realize when it comes to this journey of discipline is that you have to hold yourself accountable, and you have to be willing to be honest with yourself, because you can't change something that you're lying to yourself about. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. You need to surround yourself with people who allow you to carry on in this journey and are not stumbling blocks in your journey. In this society that we live in now, we constantly change the narrative on what is right on a consistent basis, even if inherently, morally, it's not right, but it's normal, right? So therefore, people tend to like exchange the value of, okay, this is not morally right, but it's normal, so it's okay. And that applies to many things in our society. I don't think that it is normal for us to be ingesting content about sex all the time. I don't think it is morally right for us to continuously do that, because the way our brains are wired are going to become rewired by how much we discuss sex on a daily basis. But hey, that's what I think. Let me know what you think down below. I just want to say that, yes, we are in a society that's very sexually driven. And yes, we discuss it on a daily basis. But we can change the trajectory of our brains and the way we take in information and what we feed our spirits and our souls and our minds with. It's not easy at all. Let me just be honest with you. But I can say that it is truly a journey, and there's no shame in the journey. Yeah, there's no shame in your game. There's no shame in like learning and trying to do better. It's your pursuit that's most important. Yeah, because a lot of people struggle with this. A lot of people struggle with sexual purity and like not indulging in things that cause them to feel as though that they are less of themselves, or feel as though that there's something wrong with them. Like certain people do certain things for certain reasons, you know? And when it comes to this conversation of sex, it always seems as though that like it's like there's something missing that they're trying to get to. Like they're trying to get to that next orgasm. They're trying to get to that next high. They're trying to, there's always this pursuit of something. But when will you ever be content? But anyways, you can you can apply that in so many different ways. I'm just saying. But next week I'm so excited to be able to showcase and see the different opinions that we have about sex in our society. So yeah, this is this video. Wow, we were able to do this. I'm not even gonna lie, I was nervous the whole time. Been nervous the whole time. But I thank God that we're able to discuss these things and really take a deep dive and see how things were in the past, how things are now, and what we want to do in the future. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me for this video. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you guys so very much. Thank you. And the question of the day is, what is your favorite kind of gift? What is your favorite kind of present? What is your favorite kind of gift? I personally will have to say I love flowers. I love candles. Especially candles. Like flowers are nice, but candles, I love candles. Like, please gift me a candle from Bath and Body Works. I love that. I'll keep that. Let me know what yours is down below. All right, y'all. Thank you guys so much for watching. And remember, God made you special and He loves you very much. And you could do anything you set your mind to with Christ. Of course. Of course. All right, y'all. Thanks.
You know what I'm talking about? Bring it back.